When the new year rolls around, it is quite natural for people to reflect upon what has gone before. And that's understandable because the flipping of a date in a calendar acts as somewhat of a natural fire break between what was and what is about to come. One of the things that interests me is always the lens that people use to view what has gone on in the past. And the point I'm going to posit is that traders use, I think, the wrong lens a lot of the time. And this conversation goes back to a previous video I made about reframing and how the lens through which you view a problem, a situation, even an idea, dictates your capacity to respond. And as I said in that video, in many ways it constrains your responses. So your ability to respond is a function of the box that you have put around this event. Let me give you an example by offering a personal anecdote. I decided that the period between Christmas and New Year would be the ideal time to have a significant heart attack whilst out on my mountain bike. Not good timing, but I'm not entirely certain there is ever a good time for such things. And whilst propped up in hospital, I was looking back thinking, well, literally, fucking pain in the ass. And I say that because 2021's training had been truncated. It had been truncated by a series of misadventures, illness, and things that really annoyed me. And the last quarter of 2021 was going really, really well. Things were getting back to normal. And then lo and behold, and there is now, as they say, a new normal, which is a stupid expression. But I thought to myself, well, I've done this before. Not had a heart attack, but I've done other stupid things that have ended up with me in a similar situation. And I've been able to build a framework and a mechanism for dealing with them. So that wasn't new. Granted, the presentation was new, but the actual end event and the consequences of it were not new. So as is my wont, I changed the lens through which I was viewing it, and I sat back and began to build a program. Now that program won't take effect for some time, simply because that's the nature of these things after you've had a stent put in. Now let's bring this back to trading. Imagine you're looking back at your 2021 results. Now let's say they're not brilliant. You struggled, like many, to find rhythm and routine during the pandemic. So long as you haven't gone broke, you've done well. If you're looking at it purely and simply from the perspective of a rigorous, brutal, numerical P&L, then I think you've got the wrong lens. Granted, that is important because at the end of the day, this is how we judge that part of our performance. But it is only that part. It is not the holistic notion of being a trader. So if you reframe that and you ask yourself the question, okay, I've had 365 days of trading. I've traded various markets in various conditions using various strategies. What has happened? Okay, I didn't set the world on fire. I didn't make a fortune, but I didn't go broke. So during that 365 days, I've had countless experiences for which, if you're break even, the market has paid you to have. So you've undergone a transitional learning process for free. Granted, it might have cost you something, but along the way, you are picking up that vital thing called experience. And markets are very, very harsh in that they seem to dictate that the longer you survive, the more money you make. The more money you make, the longer you survive. But the key point there is the initial one, survive. So if you've survived a year of transition, a year of ordinary trading, and we all have them, that's just the way it is, then you've actually done very, very well. To think otherwise, I think, is to view it through the wrong lens. And again, we come back to this notion of reframing. If you don't have the right framework, if you don't have sort of the right way of putting things in perspective, then what's going to occur is that for this year coming, the range of alternatives available to you that you can see, that you can perceive, that you can enact, is severely constrained, because you're looking at last year's results as, let's say, being a loser, that you've done something wrong. So that instantly ablates a raft of possible positive approaches that you might undertake. And these approaches might be, you look back at your system and you go, that worked, that worked, that worked, that worked really well. Okay, how do I take that forward? If you view yourself as a loser based upon P&L, then you won't be able to see that. All you'll see is the gross number, the number at the end, and you will judge yourself accordingly. And in doing so, you constrain what you can do. So in many ways, you actually set yourself up for a repeating pattern of failure, because you do not have a different mechanism. You do not have a different way of seeing things. And it is only by flipping that lens that all these other things become apparent to you. So what my suggestion would be, as we begin to move further and further into 2022, is simply to look back at the things you did well and copy those. Yes, you can look back at the things you did badly, but you need to look back at those through a very dispassionate lens, through the lens of a professional who simply says, well, mistakes were made, but that's just the way it is. And in doing so, you can actually build a springboard, a jumping off point, let's say, for 2022. Judge yourself by your P&L only and get caught in that mindset. And whilst I'm not one for predictions, because I don't think they work, I would posit that your 2022 unfortunately will be just exactly the same as your 2021.